Hey, welcome back to day two. Hopefully you made it through everything on the first day okay. It was really nice to see you guys again. I know that it's not quite the same kind of dynamic as being in the classroom, but it was definitely nice to hear how you've been doing. And if you haven't been able to submit your assignments from yesterday, don't worry, they're not going to be counted late or anything. I'll just be reaching out to you guys to make sure that you have what you need. And if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. You can shoot me an email or ask on the Google Doc. But so far, I've liked what I'm seeing, and I've missed you guys. Um, anyway, moving on. Today, your assignment is to do chapter 4.1 from the textbook. So this is going to be our introduction to homeostasis. And what I'm going to ask is that as you're reading it, just like we've always done, you read it through once and then go back over and take some notes on it. And I'll talk about that here in a second. So let me just give you a brief overview of what chapter 4.1 is about. It's all about how the body maintains homeostasis. And just to remind you guys, when I say chapter 4.1, I'm talking about the whole section here. So we're going into the importance of homeostasis, how the body, like what systems the body has in order to do that, and then what negative feedback is. So you'll be reading that whole thing today. If you find that that's taking quite a chunk of time, let me know, and um, we can kind of readjust and see where we're at. So big picture for this unit is in the first section is really just comparing multi and unicellular organisms and how they're able to maintain homeostasis. As we get into the second section, that's going to be about the body systems specifically found in humans and other animals, and what those systems are doing to help either bring stuff into the body or help get rid of them. And then as well as, oh, I love when this happens. There we go. Let's see if we can get that to work. Does that ever happen to you guys where it just decides not to have certain pages? Anyway, so the second section is all about the body systems that are involved in moving materials around, getting them to each of the cells, as well as communicating and so forth. And then finally, the third section is about something called negative feedback, and we're really going to dive in that tomorrow. So if you're finding that this section is a little bit tougher than the other two, don't stress too much. We will be going over it. Okay, so what is your assignment? You are going to be, as I said, reading and taking notes. And I want to give you a lot of options here, but two things that I'm going to pretty much insist upon. I want it handwritten and I want it submitted via a PDF. It's really cumbersome to try to go through and grade JPEGs or other kind of images when it's like file after file after file. So I'll talk about how to get that as a PDF if you don't already know. You'll want to watch to the end. The other thing is handwriting it. There's so much science behind the cognitive relationship between reading something, writing it down, and having a physical space for it as opposed to just typing something up. It's a much more passive process. If you're just typing up whatever you're reading to make notes, because then you're not really learning anything from it. But how you do that is really going to be up to you. If you have a way that you're really comfortable with for taking notes, just as always, you can use that. I've also attached the guided notes. You can use that either as a template or if you want to print that off, if you have a printer at home, feel free to do that. But again, just make sure that you're answering the questions handwritten. Another option you have is to just go through, define all of the vocab, and answer the questions that are at the end, because if you do that, then you know you have the big ideas taken care of for that section. And if you're a fan of Doodle Notes or you've never tried it, but you think that that might be something that that kind of meshes well with your system of learning, then go for it. Regardless of how you do it, I want to show you really quickly how to, at least using Pages, be able to get that all submitted as a PDF. So a lot of people sent the assignment yesterday in and they had the picture and it wasn't in a PDF, and I'm not going to dock you for it. But like I said, it makes it a lot easier for me if it is via PDF. So let me go ahead and shrink this guy down a little bit. Don't need that. Don't need that. Okay, so I have a Here it is, it's behind my picture. Oops, there we go. I have just a random picture here of the handwritten assignment. And so if you are in Pages, what you can do is just take the picture, drag it right into Pages, and it drops there. If it's easier to read in a larger size, then make sure it's large enough that I'm able to see it. But once you have all of the different images pasted into a single file, then you're going to come up here and File, and you have two options for how you do this. You can either hit Export to PDF. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just hit Next, name it, and then that becomes the thing that you submit. Or alternatively, you can go in, and this is kind of neat, you can go in to print it, and instead of hitting print, you can come over here to where it says PDF, save as PDF, and then do it the same way there. And the same exact thing happens. You'll have a way to title it, put it where you want it, and then submit that. So if you could make that happen, that'd be great. If you've got questions, let me know. And so if you're ready to go, don't feel like you need to watch any further, but I will give a little bit of an overview now on the text so that for those of you that need a little bit more framework, kind of that skeletal structure, and then you can go in and fill in the details a little bit easier. This is for you guys. So hopefully I can see all of the pictures though. Okay. So we started to do this a little bit last semester, which is previewing the chapters and seeing what they're about. So I'm going to do that really quickly. I'm going to come over here and kind of drill down on the different sections. So I know that I'm looking at how bodies maintain homeostasis, the importance of it, what are the different systems that do it, and negative feedback. So as you're going through, be cognizant of that. So here's what homeostasis is. We've got our definitions there, and a little bit of a rewind. I think this is helpful to contextualize everything that we've learned already. So we know that homeostasis is one of the characteristics of living things. Do you guys remember the other ones? Right? They're all right there. So that ability to keep what's going on inside the cell at consistent levels, or at least at levels that are different from their environment. Because if the environment and the cell are at exactly the same conditions, then different biochemical reactions aren't going to be happening. And also, well, that's no different than just having a bag of nothing, right? Because they're kind of at equilibrium, right? The outside and the inside of the cell don't have any differences, so it's not really alive. So this first section is all about talking about some of the conditions that are going to be kept stable, or at least different than their environment, things like temperature and pH, but also things like ion concentration. Okay. As we then get into the next section, it's all about that difference between multicellular and unicellular organisms and how they're able to maintain homeostasis. If you're a unicellular organism, you've got direct access to the environment. If you are a multicellular organism, you do not have direct access to the environment, which means that, and this is where it's going to come into the next section here, you're going to need body systems that do help move materials from the environment into the body, or from the body back out to the environment. And not only that, but you have to have systems of getting whatever you bring in, so different types of nutrients, for example, to every cell, because that whole multicellular organism doesn't just need to keep its internal environment stable, but it has to make sure that every single cell is is maintaining homeostasis as well. Otherwise, the individual cells will then die, which isn't always a bad thing, right? Like our skin is constantly dying, and that's going to allow for a layer of dead skin that protects against different pathogens from entering. So, but if the cells aren't maintaining homeostasis, then they can't survive, and therefore they're not contributing most of the time to the survival of the organism. So in this chapter, we're looking at respiratory, digestive, and excretory system. And that's all about, for the respiratory, oxygen and carbon dioxide exchange. For the digestive, it's all about bringing glucose in. And for the excretory, it's all about getting nitrogenous wastes out. So those first three sections are really how things are being brought into or leaving the body. Once they're in the body, they need a system of moving around. That's where we're going to have the cardiovascular system come into play. And then coordinating all of that comes down to the nervous and endocrine systems. And then finally, how do you know if you're not in homeostasis? Well, there's going to be something wrong, some kind of indication that you're out of that acceptable range. And so this is where a system called negative feedback comes into play. And negative feedback is just a fancy way of saying we're too much in one direction, maybe too acidic, maybe too high of temperatures, maybe too much ion concentration. And so the negative feedback loops, or the negative feedback system, is just a description of how the body then kind of goes the opposite direction to kind of eventually temper out back to the middle or back to that acceptable range. So again, as you're going through, if you can answer the key questions that are at the end, there they are, of each section and define all the terms, you're definitely going to be in good shape. So feel free to take notes however you prefer, but maybe one of the easier ways to start, if you're not very confident with taking notes still, would just be to do definitions, key questions, and objectives at the end. My guess is that you'll probably end up with at least one side of a page. I'd hope probably closer to like a back in front of a page, if not just a little bit more. And so that's where having, you know, all of your assignments in one document and then saving it as a PDF is going to come in really handy. So as always, if you've got questions, let me know, email or through the Google Doc. I will show you that Google Doc again just so you can kind of remember what's going on there. So in Schoology, in the Unit 4 folder, it is under the Unger Biology FAQ, and I've just been kind of coming in each night or, you know, every hour or a couple of hours and answering in purple. Yeah, if you didn't already see this, the keystones are canceled. We're not having them. So that takes a little bit of pressure off of us in terms of covering all of that stuff. Anyway, I'm rambling. But yeah, we'll be back for some more of this tomorrow. Keep it up and let me know if you've got any issues. All right, bye.